Today on Gamers Couch,
Capital.
Bonjour, hello, good morning, guten Tag. This has the international news capital.
Welcome to the Couch Report, your new news for finance and other important things. Today we will talk about
Capital.
business.
The American way.
It is all about capital. If you heard about the Bloombergs or the whatevers, you haven't seen nothing yet. We'll be talking about capital today on the Couch Report.
My name is Sarah. I'm the news anchor and also owner of this channel, or just behind Geschichten and shit like that. And this here is my husband, co-star and also news anchor Daniel, who's, board gaming just like I do. And so we decided, let's share that hobby with you. And we go through our collection one by one. And talk about the games and show them to you. Maybe you like them and can find a new game for you as well. Today we are going to build and destroy and rebuild and destroy and rebuild Warsaw. Also, I'm definitely going to call it Warszawa because otherwise it's like Warsaw. No, not going to happen. We're going to talk about capital, which is geography lesson. Warszawa is the capital of Poland. So we're going to talk about that. Hubby's going to tell you all about the game. We play a couple of rounds and wrinkle our forehead in thought. And then we talk about what we liked or not liked and tell you a few funny stories and experiences from when we played. And we're going to tease the new Draw for Initiative that's going to come up next week.
Yeah, I can.
And I tried to remember, I forgot to look it up.
I can guess again. This is becoming more and more an actual finance news section.
I totally forgot. I think I know what game I totally forgot to look it up. And like I was in my studio.
Stock market. You don't really know what's going to happen. You have a good feeling about what might happen, but it's no guarantee.
Yeah. It's one or the other. I'm really trying. I think I know. If not, I'm sorry, folks.
Let's get down to business the Polish way. In capital, although the name might suggest otherwise, this is more about building buildings or houses and expanding your city. He who has the most victory points at the end of the game wins and becomes the president of the United States. Alternatively, you just win the evening, depending on whatever comes first. So, Capital is a tile-laying building game that also has some drafting elements to them. A turn is actually quite simply described. You start out with this little starting tile, and each player has the same. Each tile has different types of terrain on it. It is pretty functional, so there's no super special stuff on here. Each tile has a number on the top. That is the cost. We all start with 3 coins. And despite in other games, I don't really need to explain much. Let's just get started. What we're going to do is we go through 6 epochs, phases, rounds,
eras,
turns, whatever, measurements of time.
Nice.
And our victory guys are over here. Depending on, actually every player gets 4 of these tiles from the stack. So if you're not playing with the full set of 4 players, which is the maximum, some will be left over. So you would shuffle these beforehand so that everybody gets a different tile. So since I'm now super secret and Sarah cannot see, let me take a look at what I drew. I drew 2 tiles that are the same, so I can almost ignore
So I'm not supposed to look at the other camera?
Yeah,
Okay. No, that's fine.
So
I just stare at my cards.
me starting with 3 coins, I would almost prevent me from playing this 4-coin tile. But there's a rule in here that is called overbuilding. So I could buy this card by building it on my 1 card, and then you only pay the difference. But beware, you don't get any money back if you play a lower cost card next to it. Alternatively, if I'm super unhappy with the tiles I got, I still get to pick one, but instead of building it, I get to sell it for 3 coins. Now, let's take a look. I think I want to be very conventional and start with some housing. So I keep this 2-coin housing tile. Good thing that Sarah does not know what I'm planning to do. So, the rest of the tiles, the other 3, go over to the other player. But before we take a look at them, we reveal together what we picked. And look, I picked the housing.
I have Sigmund's column.
Oh, that's yours is going to be a little bit more complicated to explain. So, I'm going to pay 2 coins to the bank.
I do the same for
and
mine.
build my house. Now, in terms of tile laying rules, all you have to know is that you're only restricted to build within a maximum of a 4x3 grid, and you can arrange it in any way you want. So you can either have 3 cards next to each other and 4 under each other, or, well, you guessed it, 3 on top of each other and 4 to the width. You may never get or outside of that imaginary frame, so you could never ever have a situation where you have 5 tiles in one line next to each other. As to the placement rules, there are different types of houses on these cards. My regular housing, which are these red roofed houses, will eventually give me victory points at the end of each turn if they are next to a park area. Now, I could place it like this. The unfortunate thing for me is, though, that now all these 2 tiles are considered one housing tile. And for scoring, I want to have as many individual housing tiles as possible. So I'm placing it here. So when I get to score my park area, which is the green one here, I can already start with 1, 2 living spaces next to it. It makes more sense once we finish the round and take a look at that. Sarah, however, built a public building, which is, let me put it up closer to the camera.
Don't forget that we have the focus on this level. Don't hold it up too high.
It's all right. There. So, these buildings don't have any houses on them. Surprise! If you figured that out, that means you are not blind. These usually have text and give you bonuses or multiplicators for other things that happen in. So in this case, Sigmund's column gives you 5 coins if you discard a building instead of the 3 coins you would otherwise get. So this is a money maker. So let's take a look at our next turn. So there's 3 more cards. Now I could try to do different things. I don't have money to pay the 4 card. I don't have money to pay for the 2 card, and I don't have money to pay for the 3 card. So what I'm going to do now is, looking at what Sarah has there, I'm trying to deny her a card. I think she might be interested in picking up these either victory points or these expensive cards, or looking at that she only has 1 coin. So unless she sells, I might have to reconsider what she's going to do. If she sells now, she would have 6 coins in the next turn, being able to buy any of those. So I will discard the purple one. And while we're at it, the purple ones don't do much, but at the end of each turn, they give you as many victory points as is printed on the shield. So this tile generates 1 victory point at the end of each phase or area. So I'm going to select this. Don't tell her. And we are going to reveal.
I'm going to sell.
I'm going to sell. So these now go to the discard pile, which is off camera. And
You have to clean up the table and filming.
I get 3 coins. And unfortunately for me, Sarah gets 5 coins. She's already better at this entire capital thing than I am.
And I was raised in communism, folks.
Maybe if I generate enough debt, that increases my political chances.
Yeah, well, old banking jobs.
So now let's take a look at the remaining 2 cards. And since we're just in a 2-player game, this is almost no surprise because I've seen these before.
Really? Did you remember?
Now, the housing tile really doesn't help me at all, because if I place it here, these count as 1, so I don't generate anything from that, and I could extend this, but it's terrible. But I want to build something, so I want to build this thing and hand the useless tile over to Sarah. And we reveal, and it turns out now I have 4 coins. This also has a new type of house on here, the yellow house, which stands for commerce, meaning that you get money for each living area next to it. So you probably are catching on how this game works. You try to enhance your buildings by placing them advantageously to other buildings. And we are almost done with all types of buildings. There's only one type we only will see later on, so I can, by the way, explain now. We won't go through this entire thing. So
just until era 3 and play very quick and banter at each other. Because
I think 1 era should be enough.
But the war thing.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
And the blue buildings and the milestones and the buses.
So in the later in the later phases, you will come across these blue buildings. By the way, note how much more expensive these are getting. This costs 9 coins. So you're also generating more. So blue buildings will also generate money similar to the yellow buildings, but the difference here being that this is independent of what other buildings are around them. So this blue building will always generate 5 coins each turn. At the end of each turn. However, since nobody likes living next to a factory, if you place this next to a living housing area, you will have to, unfortunately, pay with victory points for that. So you lose a victory point for each housing area that is next to this, which is unfortunate. So let's take a look at the last thing we have. Surprisingly, I don't have any money, so my options are limited. I'm going to sell for 3 coins. Now, the next thing happens. First, we check if there's a war. Now, after the first phase, there is no war. However, after the second phase, there is still no war. But then, surprise, after the third phase, there is a war. In fact, this is supposed to be the Great War, the First World War, and after the 4th phase, we will have the Second World War. The war or the wars all have a similar effect. On the first war of World War, you have to pick one of your tiles and discard them. And by the way, even if you overbuild a tile like so, and you have to discard one, you still have to get rid of the entire stack. You don't just get to get rid of the top one here. Now, after that is done, we check, depending on the phase, if someone completed the special thing happening here, which is called the milestone, yes, which I totally did not forget, but we just will ignore this. So in this case, we have the Saxon Palace. I have the feeling that you made a conscientious choice.
No,
there.
I did not. I just looked at the numbers. Whatever came up first, I took. So
the Saxon Palace goes to whoever has the fewest, and the white is public buildings.
That would be you.
Or is it? I'm not actually. That is unfortunate because some of these are a little bit ambiguous. I always forget, but I'm pretty sure this is the fewest public buildings, and the gray ones are the milestones. Yeah. And if there's no house on it, if it's just a square, that means any tile. So
yeah.
Don't be like me, learn the manual correctly. But in this case, I'm actually getting this.
You get a milestone. Oh,
maybe across all the 5 million games we've played of this, the only one I ever got.
I think you got once. You got one. But...
So this is just an additional building I can place, and this will generate 2 coins for me, and I can place it anywhere. So I will place it here. No particular big choice happening over there. Let me move my little city into frame. Okay, so we have done the war, we have done the milestone, now we go to scoring, and it is really helpful to have this little scoring reference card here. First, we're going to start by taking a look at, you have to pick one park area, and for my case this is really simple, I only have one, same for Sarah. I choose you, park area, and then we are going to count every living or red area next to it, or adjacent to it. So in this case, I have 2.
Make it 2.
Sarah also has 2. Now, these are worth different amounts of victory points, which are on the other side. So resident areas adjacent to a park, for 2 you get 2 points, same for 3. But starting with 4 resident areas, you see that the victory points start increasing here, which is pretty neat, let me tell you. Next up is, so Sarah moved us on the victory scoring point track key thingy. No? That's the great Polish border is a victory.
It's the Great Wall of Money.
Probably.
Of victory.
Talking about money, it's time for commerce. So the yellow the yellow buildings generate 1 coin for each red building adjacent. In my case, this is 1, so I get 1.
I get 2.
Sarah has 2. Now we go for the purple buildings.
I have none.
1 that will generate me. I have blue, right?
Yep.
1 victory point. We have no blue factories yet, or industrial buildings, because we're not that far. And as you can see here, you get money, but you get -1 victory point for each adjacent red building. And yes, that happens every time. So some of the tiles have these buffs symbols on them, and they have a role, meaning if you have at least 2 tiles with that symbol, and both tiles are not adjacent to each other, because people want to travel across the city. They don't want to travel like to the next. Well, some might drive with a car to the mailbox and do that.
But that's the wrong country. Yes. We're in Poland, honey.
Yes. So I think they do that there too. So in this case, each bus symbol would grant me 2 victory points. So that also can be pretty nice. And in addition, we get victory points and scores from public buildings and milestones. So in this case, I have my 2 coins I get from this. So it's almost, let me exchange for 3. And that's it. Next turn starts, everybody gets 4 tiles, and the entire drafting process continues on. You do that until you finish the sixth round.
The one after 5.
And then it's who has the most victory points wins the game.
Wings. Sorry. We're having a lot of fun here.
This is an interesting choice. So I think...
Oh. Wow.
I could build a lot of purple, but at least one of these will come back. This probably won't come back, so I will take it. And surprise, I will build the Jablonski Palace.
And I will discard for 5.
So I'm sorry, the Jablonowski Palace, which is entirely different.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting little feature saying whenever you overbuild, gain 2 victory points. And by the way, you can also overbuild these milestones and public buildings. Milestones just are worth nothing, well, in terms of money. These were mine? Okay.
You have to rotate quickly.
Let me
win quickly.
Let's take a look. Oh, I think I know what I'm going to build.
Really? Oh, awesome. I had a choice. I buy.
Yes, I'm going to build this, but instead of paying 4, I will only pay 2 because I will replace this building up here, and now I only have to pay the difference. This also has an additional benefit of giving me the 2 victory points because I just overbuilt something. Also, as you can see, this is still the same setup, so I don't lose any victory points to my park area, but what's new is that now I have an additional yellow building, which also will generate me 1 coin for being next to that. Let's keep going. Okay. I have chosen. Have you chosen as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I will get rid of this tile and sell it for 3.
I sell for 5.
And last thing would be this for 4. Now I already have one of that.
I'm gonna sell for 5.
Now, it would have been cool if I could have built this here, but as I said, you can never get outside of the 4x3 frame, so I'm not allowed to build there. I could build it down here, which I think is the sensible choice. So I will pay 3 coins, and you can barely see that, but trust me, that building is there. And that was just another round, and so we would go through scoring again. I think you probably picked up how this works by now. Again, the only upcoming thing now would be the war after the next turn. Let's have a quick look. This year the milestone was the Grand Theater, and the Grand Theater goes to whoever has the most purple buildings.
Just got 1, you got 2, you get the milestone.
2, and
What's
because this is a
you?
demo game, I suddenly get milestones, which
Yeah, that's why. What's wrong with you? Who are you?
So every purple building adjacent to the theater gives me a victory point. So I wanna put it down here.
We are in Poland. We're not in Brittany.
Another thing I wouldn't be allowed to do, and I'm getting close to that. Well, not close. What I wouldn't be allowed to do is to build in a way where there's a tile without any adjacent tiles. So let's say if this would be the end of the 3rd turn, I would not be allowed to get rid of this or this tile, because that would kind of leave this gap in these free-floating districts over here, which is frowned upon in Warsaw.
Yeah.
These milestones have 2 sides with different buildings, so that switches the game up a little bit. There's a whole bunch of public buildings in here. In fact, the game goes above and beyond and shows you what these all are and what they do. And also, if you're so inclined and interested, they give you a little blurb about the history of the place and why it's important. And if you wonder why there's these guys on the these guys are the victory points, this is the symbol of the city of Warsaw. And now you know.
Can you tell us how many players this game is and how long it's supposed to take, and the age bump you have to overcome before you're allowed to play it, and then we go into the next section?
The age bump or the age bump?
Bump, not the bomb. Jesus Christ. No.
As hinted at, this caps out at 4 players, so it's 2 to 4 players. There's no special variant for the 2-player rule, which is already appreciated. As you've seen, it always works by you hand out 4 tiles, and it just happens so if you're playing with 4 players that, well, you use up the entire stack. If you don't, you don't. With obviously just strategic differences, because in a 4-player game you don't get your tiles back as often as, for example, in a 2-player game.
As often? Not at all. Is the other word.
Well, it's not as often. It's less often than... It is for city builders age 10 and up, and it is in theory done in 60 minutes. That may vary on how complicated actually your scoring ends up being in the
how many players
in the town you have. I want to say that apart from the scoring, I think more players don't prolong the game in a very meaningful way, because since everything happens simultaneously, you draft and you give the card to the next player, and everybody's kind of baffled at their choices each turn equally, most for the time, and the only thing that actually does take longer is tallying up the scores, specifically if you're playing with new players who haven't done so before. Yeah. And since this relies heavily on just the symbols, and that it might be confusing, it is actually really fast to play if you have done so for 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah. So let's hop into the next section, likes and dislikes, and talk about us maybe liking this game. So funny enough,
no funny stories. You just say if you like or dislike it. We have this reporting format has to follow certain constraints.
I just have a funny
journalistic integrity.
Totally.
Objectively, you have to tell us what's good and bad about the game.
But I cannot tell that objectively, because it's my opinion, which is always subjective.
The objective opinion.
Yeah, because I'm always right. So he got the game at Essen for us, and usually, and there's the funny thing, when I'm inside at our house, I only wear my glasses on one occasion. That is us watching a movie on the big screen. Otherwise, I'm always kind of like the mole. I'm almost half blind in the house because, well, I'm comfortable without glasses. I don't need to see shit. So he came home and I saw this box and I was like, Frankfurt? Because it looks, no, like the border thingy there. It looks like, okay, finance, capital, city, and then it's called capital, you know, and I thought, oh, banking game, great. But reading up on the game, it was way more interesting than my first impression of just looking at it half blind. So there was the funny story. I really like this game. It has a lot of things that I very much like in board gaming, and it scratches the itch for tile laying game for me. I don't have to have like the huge Carcassonnes or whatever, but my tiny little 3x4 grid city, and it always looks different because we're always drafting. So it combines the high replayability with the tile laying and just making something pretty for me while playing. Also, when just the two of us play, we can play it with way less time because we're already used to the scoring. So this is not an hour game for us. It could almost be a dinner game. It's like on the verge of being a dinner game from the fast pace that we could play it with. And I really like that. Once you're used to the icons, it's the simplest game. It's very streamlined. It's not boring, and it's not a game that has nothing to that. That's not what I mean with simple, but it's like straightforward, and you can just jump right in. You don't have to read up again. Oh, what was that again? Oh. It's like, yep, you know it, you learn it, and you will probably not forget it unless you have Alzheimer's or whatever. So I really like that. And while playing, and you can actually almost talk about other stuff while you're playing, but only almost. It's quite thinky, but well, sometimes you can have a little chat there, here and there. It's very nice to look at, I think. It has the touch, or it reminds me of a retro games almost. It looks old. It has old in the sense of this is not a new city that is just woohoo capitalism 20th century, let's build something in the grid.
It is.
No, it's retro.
I think
with the colors and
the illustrations are closer to SimCity for me than to more modern style.
Yeah.
Let's say a simulation video games that deal with city building, and this is kind of not outside the realm of board games, but these little. Look from above and have the little houses as
with the laundry hanging there to dry.
Kind of pixels. I mean, this could have almost worked also as an abstract game just by having different just colors in there.
Yeah.
So,
but what I mean with retro is Warsaw is a really old city, and it's of course grew and was rebuilt after the wars, but. It fits. It would have been, I don't know, whatever city, Wisconsin, USA, it wouldn't have fit, that is what I mean with retro. The colors and the actual history just fit with these tile-laying games where you replace something and you build something around it and it grows.
I have to say, except for the public buildings and milestones, for me, there's not much that reminds me of Warsaw.
No, I mean, it doesn't scream Warsaw, but Warsaw fits as it could also been Dresden or I don't know, some city, Lyon or something. It could have been other cities that were involved in the First and Second World War. But I just think Warsaw fits.
I have to say that the simplicity of this only being in a 4x3 grid is also something I very much like, and which kind of puts this game for me above some of the others we have that kind of are in the same category. I think this trumps for me Castles of Mad King Ludwig for one, because and one is more a nitpicky thing, but Castles is pretty fiddly with all the little tiles, and then someone comes close to them and they are then kind of, oh, this all moved and now I have to check if I can actually build there anymore. You don't have that with this here. It's pretty clear what you're doing. It's very clean to look at, and while castles, and I probably will compare this more than once here, castles can be a little bit of a pain with the scoring if you have more complicated situations with tiles, and it's not impossible, but there's a lot to kind of keep in mind doing that and checking. Here it is essentially you're just building it. At the end of the turn you go through and okay, that's the score, and you go on to the next turn. It doesn't hold up the gameplay that long. It is not, well, it is lacking the antagonizing of the selling phase in Castles. So that is, although that is done for me here with the drafting.
Exactly.
Where you decide, do I want to support my next player by handing out a card that is really good? So that I can buy something I can afford, or do I trash the card and get the money for it in hopes that the next time I get something that is good? For me, this game is quite good to parse, looking at the board, at what's going on. Even so, at another player's board, although I don't remember doing that very often, but
not at all.
Sometimes, if in a pinch, deciding, okay, to that or that, you take a look at what your neighbors is doing, and then you still have a good idea of, okay, I probably shouldn't give him this tile or that tile, just looking at that. With the public buildings and the milestones mixing things up, and what I also like about this is that there's different paths to have a good chance at winning the game, which means you can try to build this really big park area with living buildings. You can try to go in all on the purple stuff and try to find public buildings or milestones that help you out with that and multiply that. You can go with the bus stations. You can try to have a mix of multiple of these point generators doing so. And that clean look, that clean presentation is also present in another thing, which I very much like. If you take a look at the insert, this is where these card stacks go, and it's
one era.
It is super clean. All these up
box.
here. This is actually something I haven't seen before. This way of storing the victory point figurines in here. But this is a very clean insert, and you can play out of the box. All you have to do is put up the stuff. That's another thing. This is really easy to get started with. There's not much or no sorting at all happening until the end, where you kind of redo the stacks. So that's another difference to other games, which might be Castles of Mad King Ludwig, where you have to sort the tiles for different stacks and put them there and set this up. This is out on the table really fast.
Yeah, it took me 1.5 minutes to set this up for camera, and meaning having everything in frame and stuff added. So it would be like 45 seconds for if you don't have a camera there, which is super fast.
And as a gameplay thing, I cannot overstate really like this 4x3 grid restriction. There's a card in there that actually expands this to a 4x4 grid. But that is something I also like about stuff like Carcassonne, the Castle. I like tile-laying games if they are in some way spatially restricted. Meaning I'm not that big a fan of Carcassonne by itself, but I like stuff
the two-player castle one where we have the frame around it. I like that one too.
So I like laying tiles and checking out how can I have them benefit from then adjacent tiles, but I don't want to have this big sprawling.
Yeah. Another thing that I really liked and that we forgot to say in the rules is you cannot really team up, or you cannot really play just against one player, because in the odd-numbered rounds you go clockwise with rotating your cards or your tiles, and in the even-numbered rounds you go counterclockwise. So you... it's not always, I'm going to deny you that. And now I'm going to deny you that just because you didn't take down the trash in time or something. You cannot do that. It's very fair. I think by drafting, there's the quote-unquote luck factor in there on what you draw.
I think... due to the nature of those tiles being quite similar, you've seen in the first turn I drew tiles that were identical. It is really hard to focus on messing up just a single player.
Yeah. I would almost go so far to say you would lose.
Yeah, the only thing you would achieve with that is making sure that
you're not playing
you're losing
optimal.
More than the other player. I have to say we don't use the overbuilding as much as
I did last time only, but I'm gonna talk about that in the funny stories. But yeah, we usually go one grid first and then we build on top, right?
But that is a kind of interesting problem then later on when you can overbuild and really kind of speed up the value of your individual buildings, but the war happening would also in that case mean that you are lacking some buildings that you could trash without thinking twice about them. So even if you, hypothetically, if there would be an amazing building and you would stack them all up to do that one, that kind of would be really counterproductive if you get to the war stage where you have then get rid of all your building. I think there's... the game gives you a nice framework or a nice frame of operations for the tile laying and mixes that up with enough interesting rules with the different types of buildings without being so overwhelming that it is confusing even for players who have never played something like this before. I would probably go so far to call this a good
be gateway.
game candidate. It's a little bit mathy with the points, and maybe for players who are not too keen on that, they can just enjoy that for kind of the building aspect and not going the min-max route. How can I make this into this machine that spits out victory points at the end of each turn? But even that is entirely possible. The tiles are of good quality, the same for the coins. And as
I like the color scheme they used for them. They're all off colors. They're all retro looking. They're very, very yellowish.
While I appreciate what they did with the more realistic, they're still drawings and depictions. I think I would have almost preferred more like I think this has a bit of more of a comic style. But
then again, the milestones and the publics are the ones that are supposed to stand out. Because I find it I would find it more difficult to remember the extra that I get. Would I not have a tile that really is disrupting that nice colory flow of the rest of the city?
I still think it should that they have a look like this, but with the building being more in a comic style.
Okay,
or
got
the statues
I
being
think
more
they're
in a comic
photographs.
Style. I don't think
that
so.
They're photographs that are painted on top in a computer program because.
These. I'm pretty sure these are painted.
Yeah, they're painted, but
they maybe
digital and have underneath a photo. Something like that. Anyway. They're beautiful nonetheless.
Let's rate the game.
1, 2, 3. Yep, there you go. Get that game if you like drafting with tile.
As I said, this might not be the best tile laying game, but it is the first for me on my list to pick stuff because of fast to play. The only thing that might even make it better if there's a way to play it with 5 players, but that is kind of the problem with group sizes. Of a group of 5 is always kind of annoying in that regard, but this is, I think, perfect as a family game.
Yep.
This is great if you have kids that need some help counting or learning counting because of the victory points and doing that, as well as being able to associate and strategize. And just the look of it, it's entirely inoffensive, even though there's this concept of war in there. War is just that little fighter plane that's remove a tile.
Every documentary on any public television station is more violent looking for World War I, World War II. Goddamn it, it's history, folks.
And even if you didn't want that, you could say these are the 2 accident eras where an accident happens.
An earthquake or something in Warsaw. Anyway, let's hop into the last section, funny stories, experiences. We've played this a couple of times. We played it just the 2 of us with my mom and with friends.
Here's my
gaming group
experiences, or my major experience. Unless there's a camera pointed at you running, you will never get a milestone.
I think you got 1 milestone once, but never again until today. And I did not, like I said, I did not choose the milestones. I just put them down and I didn't look at them for when I was playing. So I did not hand you the milestones, but that is actually one thing that we had across so many games. He did so good, and he usually is winning or second or first runner-up, but he never got those damn milestones. It was almost impossible, and that led to kind of frustration, at least on his part. Mine was giggly at one point, but we just had we tried it with the gaming group first, which was the test game with 4 people, And there it behaved so well, that game, that we said, oh, we're definitely going to have to play that twice, just the two of us, a couple of times. And then we played with my mom. So Mama likes tile laying games as well. And yeah, she really enjoyed it. It was more of the challenging game for her, but that was due to having some white wine in the system and trying to remember, do I have to give it this way? Or do I have to pass the tiles this way to the next one? Which was a lot of fun, because over the rounds, we all were like, which way? And instead of looking, oh, we're round 4, we have to give it to the neighbor this direction. It was something that I giggled a lot. And that game was actually booyah for me. It was the game that I first used the overbuilding a lot, and I used it early because I got the public building that said I would get extra victory points if I overbuild, every time I overbuild. So I only tried not to overbuild the buildings that I knew I would trash in the wars, because I always plan which of the tiles I'm going to trash in war and build the rest of the city around it. So I was overbuilding a lot there. 3 or 4 tiles high were my buildings, and it was quite cheap.
Oh, great. Newsflash. The manual says that this icon means who has the fewest building of all public buildings is the gray icon. So it might be possible that I would not have gotten that milestone.
Hold on.
In the first
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
First and second 8.
Oh. Okay.
Well, there you have it. Corrections can come in even for a live show. Like, this is not.
It's a recorded live show.
It's a pre-recorded live show. We are live right now.
I do refuse to film something again. So it is. Are you alive?
I am alive.
Are you alive?
Are you alive? No?
Cylon, who toaster you? Are you alive? Anyway, this is all I remembered. We were always fairly close together with the victory points, and we had very different cities. And aside from you bickering about not getting the milestones, which I totally understand, but he gets really sarcastic and super funny then.
I tried for 2 games to actually make an effort getting those milestones, and I never got it.
No, and then you said, fuck it, let's point the camera at me and play once more, and you get a milestone, maybe.
In fact, I just said, screw it, I'm gonna win just anyway.
Yeah, you were really good with the parks. He has the most beautiful parks. He doesn't really build a lot with blue or purple, maybe.
Remember to use the scoring aid on the back here, because it happened to us that we just, let's count the houses next to the park, and that's still, we are still close enough to make it look like, hey, you're doing a good job, but that...
for 8 houses, 16 points.
The multiplication happening later on it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's every era, so you were really working with that.
At least to me, that was also, just from the feel, the most puzzly type of style of play. Yes, you have to you always puzzle around how can you optimize your buildings, but with the parks, you really don't want to place a building in a spot where you kind of lose points, because you would form a single large building block instead of having like individual. So, for example, here Sarah would never want to build a building here, which kind of turns these two into just one big block. So
nope. No, was that on screen? Yeah, it was.
Probably not.
No, it was. See here. See. Brrr. Yeah. So I think that's that. Do you remember anything else?
We now go to the next reporting segment, which is more about looking into the future.
So let's turn on to the stock market. What's gonna come up? It's a game. So Draw for Initiative will air next Wednesday. And if I remember correctly, there's going to come up a game.
Is it already the hint?
What?
Was it already the hint?
No.
The air thing? Or
no, okay. There is no air in that game. It's very agonizing. It also comes from the former communist area. It's a bit south of Warsaw, actually, but it plays in a futuristic setting that is very agonizing. The future is not going to be fun, folks, not according to that game. And you have to do shit and survive. That was super pointy.
I'm pretty sure it's... You shoot people in the blunderfuts in adrenaline.
No.
But it's in the future. It's grim. Well,
yeah, but it's not agonizing. It's fun.
It's super agonizing getting a rocket to the face with a smiley robot.
No, not that game.
Star Trek Panic, which is kind of south into space a couple million light years.
No, but that is closer.
Very antagonizing.
Yeah, it's closer to the game that we're painting. It's less adrenaline, even more Star Trek Panic. It brought something to the table that was never really done before, using technology for a cool part of the game.
Huh.
Remember?
Is it one of those fancy new electronic device-based games?
It's not device-based, but you could either use a radio, or like for the discs, or you could use that fancy thing called tablet with an app.
Huh. Does it have anything to do with cubes?
Yeah, it has cubes.
Does it have to do with little guys running around?
Yeah,
desperately.
Very agonizing.
Are some of the cubes green?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's probably Descent with the gelatinous cube.
No, it's not.
And the Road to Legend app.
No, it's not. But it's also co-op, like Descent, with the co-op app.
Well, maybe you figured out which game it is. It apparently wasn't alert enough when we were playing in this space. But...
I knew it!
I don't know how to continue from that.
I hope I remember the correct game. If it would be the other one now, then I'm gonna fluster it. It would be so off.
Well...
It's one of these two games. It should be. I'm sorry, folks, if I screwed up.
So what I can tell you, the other game that Sarah told me in the ear is Seeker of the Bath. So I don't know what that is. Maybe it helps you either way. Whatever. Thank you for joining us. Yes. You can see us again trying to figure out board games and trying to talk about them in a week
figure them out
from now.
Usually.
Well, maybe sometimes we learn something live on camera, like the stupid damn.
Yeah, you're in charge of rule reading. If you don't do that well, you don't get any chocolate. He doesn't necessarily like chocolate that much. It's not really a punishment.
Please thumbs up for chocolate for me.
Oh, do that. Or for the Salzbrezel, which is your German lesson of the day. Don't get me started, I'm getting hungry. Anyway, it's time for other things at the house. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section below. Do the good YouTube stuff.
Happy city building.
Happy city building. You can also find us on Board Game Geek. There's geek lists for Draw for Initiative and for Gamers Couch. And if you prefer other platforms, well, there's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. The links are...
And it's all Pinselgeschichten.
It's all, almost all is Pinselgeschichten, but it's in the description box below. It's so easy. I'm writing it all out for you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Ouch. Brrr. Hold it. Brrr. Are you out of frame? Yeah, wonderful. We are so pretty. Bye.